Hello, Vara, the VCR Show coming at you. Today's format's just a little bit different, but don't worry, nothing's really changed. Today, we are jumping in the topic of Comicpalooza here in Houston, Texas, but we're primarily focusing on a very specific aspect of Comicpalooza, which is going to be the up and coming comics. So these are going to be comic writers and comic book producers and labels that are more independent. They're not your DC, they're not your Marvel. They are more independent, and they are going to be startup comics in some situations. And in other situations, they're established. They're just trying to slowly get out there and pick up a little bit more steam. So we're mostly focusing on that. But we are also looking at some of the really beautiful and elaborate costumes that were at Comicpalooza. I know I had a thrill just interviewing a couple of them. We're going to bring you about 3 interviews of that. Now, don't worry for all of you who are like, oh my God, where's Roxy? She's still here. You won't see her in any of the videos because she was the camera woman behind all the videos. You can hear her every now and then, and she'll pops up every once in a while. But, definitely check that out. And definitely, one of these things, definitely support some of these indie comic books. They are really fabulous, really interesting. I'm very, very pleased. I'm so thrilled. I'm gonna do a little show and tell. You want a little show and tell? Well, you're getting a little show and tell. So I got this really great comment. We did this interview with this really great group called Unearthly Comics, and they have a Kickstarter going on right now for one of their stories, which is Stiletto. And they were so awesome and so amazing. One of the best interviews I had. Me and Roxy really enjoyed them. We liked it so much we had to support, and they were so awesome. They gave us a extra comic called Gator Man. This is issue number 1 of the story Gator Man. And I know that kind of comes out in reverse on the screen, but hey, if you're dyslexic like me, you can read it just fine. But this is a very fascinating story behind here. So the whole thing with Unearthly Comics is they take, or kind of like horror lines, or kind of like horror, what you would maybe think is a horror movie creation type of idea, and it's more of a horror comic. So I really loved the idea. It was great. Roxy loved it. She picked up their Kickstarter one, which is called Stiletto, and you can learn more about that in the interview. But we interviewed some other really amazing people there who were just so entertaining and so fascinating and so creative. A lot of these, now one thing about this one is the team that was there, both the illustrator and the writer were there. There's going to be another one called Stormy. It's a comic book called Stormy. Really great storyline behind that. It's this kind of a rock star named Stormy. Well, not kind of, she is a rock star. And she gets involved with this voodoo queen who is kind of after her, who clearly has some type of supernatural powers. And the beauty about that one is the writer is also the illustrator. So double talented right there. We also were able to talk to a couple of authors of some very interesting up and coming books. One of them possibly being a proposition by the guys who do Rick and Morty. So, hey, much luck to them. So, a little flavoring before you get into the interviews. You're going to have like 3 or 4 interviews going on. You're going to see them. I promise you, Roxy is still there. She hasn't left the show. Comicpalooza was wonderful. We got to do a sit-in to a panel discussion with Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd talking about Back to the Future, which was super entertaining. Absolutely loved it. Comicpalooza was a blast this year. Seemed like way more people this year. According to me and Roxy, because we this is our 3rd year going. We loved it. This is the first year where Roxy did not dress up. Normally she dresses up, but she didn't do it this year. Time crunches didn't permit us to do that. But, next round, we're gonna do something twinsy, I guess. I'm not quite sure. At the end, when the credits are rolling, please check out some of our extra photos of Comicpalooza that we think you'll really enjoy. Also, on a sadder note, you're going to see a in memory of slide pop up here in the show. It's our first in memory of. As some longtime followers of the show, longtime fans of the show, I want to thank you so much. But my original co-host and my first love co-host, Brutus, the dog, my English Mastiff, passed away today. He was 10 years old. He had recently gone blind, and then other health issues just kind of crept in there. But thank you so much for the love and support. He's up in doggy heaven enjoying himself with all his friends. And, one day when I get to those gates, I'll see him waiting for me. But you will see a in memory card for him. And, give him a few pats, a few likes, maybe some hearts. But more importantly, go out there and support some of those indie comic writers. They're absolutely brilliant. And the storylines, I'm going to say, the storylines are way more entertaining than, in my opinion, before anyone says anything, what other bigger comics like DC or Marvel are producing. I think their storylines they're not bad storylines from Marvel and DC, but they've been long running at it. But some of these new up and comings, take a look, check them out here on the VCR show. Vara VCR show here at Comicpalooza, the final day of Comicpalooza. And we are here with a very interesting comic type of theme, which is a combination of comic and horror. And we are here with Mr.
I am Nick Edwards with my partner here, Scott Beecher.
Nice. And you are the writer, correct? Okay, so tell us a little bit about the storyline behind this comic. I know that the whole reason we fell on this is Roxy is here today too. She loves horror and she saw a horror comic and she was like, "We need to stop." And I was like, "Okay." So tell us a little bit about the line, the storyline, and everything else going on.
Yeah, so Stilettos is a revenge thriller, and it is told from the perspective of a dancer who gets roped into dancing at a very high-end bachelor party, but the bachelor party is much more sinister than it initially appears. So she's got to rely on her wits and some tenacity to survive. And this is just a preview book that we have right now. This is the first 28 pages, but we're actually going to be doing a Kickstarter for the full graphic novel running from June 1st to June 30th. Excellent. So just a few days away.
Okay,
yeah.
So if they wanted to join in to the Kickstarter, how would they go about doing that?
So you can follow us on Instagram. We are at Unearthly Comics, or go to our website, www.unearthlycomics.com. And we're going to be posting a ton about the Kickstarter all throughout the month of June. And so it'll be impossible to miss it if you go to the Instagram.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah. And you are the illustrator, correct? So, well, first off, how did you two meet and come up with this really fascinating, comic here?
At a convention in Irving, Texas, right before COVID. We met in February 2020. Seriously, wow. Right before COVID, and Scott had been working with Unearthly. He started Unearthly 10 years ago?
Yeah, about 10 years ago is when I started Unearthly. So yeah, so we started, and then Nick came to the table. He was a writer looking for an artist, and I'm an artist that can't write, so it sounds like a good pairing. So yeah, so we just started to collaborate. He was showing me stuff he'd written, and then I talked to him about Gatorman and ideas, and then that was our first real collab. And once that was successful, we were like, well, let's do it again. And so that's how Stilettos was born.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about Gatorman then.
No, that one was a lot of fun. Scott came up with the idea, and then I wrote the script in the summer of 2020. It's we wanted to make something that was like an homage to the slasher movies of the 70s and 80s. And so the quick pitch is Texas Chainsaw Massacre meets Con Air. And it's about a prison transport flight that crashes deep in the Florida Everglades. The survivors are looking for a place to hide out, and they stumble upon this house that, little do they know, is home to a horrific serial killer who calls himself the Gator Man and wears an alligator skull on his head. And as the title implies, he kills people. And then violence ensues.
Very cool. So you have Gatorman, you have Stiletto. What else? I mean, tell me more about your comics and more about your storylines here.
Sure. So we've got this other one, The Apostasy, right here. And the quick pitch on that one is Lone Wolf and Cub set in hell. And that one, so Scott does a wonderful job on the art for Gator Man and Stilettos. The Apostasy is drawn by our friend who isn't at this show today, a guy named Dave Schuler, based up north, really, really talented artist. And I met him at an arts festival outside of Philadelphia. And we just hit it off and decided to work on this book together too. But really, we're horror geeks, and we want to make comics that we would read, and hopefully other people like them too.
Now, I would be a bad journalist if I didn't ask this after that. Favorite horror movie, if you have one, or maybe top two.
Sure. Probably the scariest movie I've ever seen is Sinister with Ethan Hawke. The movie scared the pants off of me.
Very good.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what is yours? Do you have a favorite horror one?
The fun thing was we actually have like our creator thing here. We actually list some of ours. I really like Psycho Goreman just because it's nuts. I love that movie. But of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, that's always a win.
It's a classic.
And then honestly, more recently, I really enjoy X and Pearl. I cannot wait
Those
for
are
Maxine.
Yes.
Those are good. I love those. So yeah, Mia Goth. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, we just recently reviewed X. She saw Pearl. I didn't see that one, but you know,
It's good.
X
It's
was
good, right? Yeah, it's so good.
I'm so stoked for Maxine.
It
Oh,
looks
yeah.
it looks so good. Yeah, same.
Yeah, so that's going to be the third one of their trilogy type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is very cool. Absolutely love it. Y'all are you working on getting into any of the brick and mortars here in Houston, or are you already in them?
So we're from the Dallas area.
Okay.
So we put a lot of our books in the Dallas area stores. It would be awesome to get into some Houston stores. We just, we don't live here. We don't have a ton of contacts here. So it's a nice idea, though.
Awesome.
Well, a cool thing that he did, Johnny Appleseed our Gator Man throughout the country. What was that, 2 years ago?
No, that was in 2022.
Yeah.
My job is remote, so it let me drive around the country. So I actually drove around with a box of books in the back of my car, and ended up getting because of that we got the books on shelves in like 15 states, I think, which was really cool. And it was all just me going door to door, going to stops and just asking them, hey, do you have shelf space?
So I kind of have to say, so it seems like COVID is really was kind of like, let's call it a blessing in disguise for y'all. It led y'all to meet, and then it got y'all on the shelves.
Yeah, it was just a catalyst for a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was obviously, crazy time for everybody, right? Nobody came out unchanged, but for us, it turned into a really positive thing.
Very awesome. It did the same for. I started the VCR show back when COVID hit, and then we ended up doing the show ever since. So it's been great. So,
it kind of people ran out of excuses to not do the things that they've been putting off.
Exactly.
Everybody had nothing but time. So just why not chase your dream when you got nothing else going on?
When you got nothing better to do, why not?
Exactly.
Live your dreams when you have nothing better to do.
You heard it here first.
When you're bored.
Nothing else going on.
Vara, the VCR show here again at Comicpalooza, and I am here with
Robert Salcedo,
and he is the creator of this very interesting comic with a very interesting background involving werewolves and a reporter, and we're going to let him tell us a little bit more about the background and the story on that.
Yeah, so the book is set in College Station, Texas, and it's about a reporter who has to go undercover at a furry convention to stop a werewolf from eating all the attendees. It's got laughs, it's got scares, it's got a cameo from Marvin Zindler. It's a perfect love letter to werewolves and the weirdness that is Texas.
Awesome. If you're a little too young to know who Marvin Zindler is, you need to Google that, man. He is a Texas and Houston staple. You gotta love him. So, what exactly is it that made you come up with? What inspired you to come up with that storyline?
Yeah, I've always loved werewolves, and when I was in college, like a long time ago, I came up with this idea of a werewolf in a furry convention, because what better place for a werewolf to hide than in a furry convention? It took me years, though, to find the time to actually write the story, and it was all thanks in a weird way to COVID. I was laid off, like many people were. I didn't have anything to do, and so I made this my COVID project in order to keep me sane. I spent the first 6 months of COVID writing this story, and then the next year working on making it a comic book.
Excellent. And if people were interested in getting a hold of your comic book, how would they go about doing that?
It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, If you live in Houston, you can pick it up at Browse's bookstore or actually at the gift store of the Museum of Fine Arts.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're actually well established with this in a way.
Yeah. Well, I was grateful enough to have a big response to the book. It's actually been optioned by one of the producers of Rick and Morty.
Nice.
They're developing it into hopefully something, a TV show or a movie. But it's I've had a lot of success, and I look forward to having more readers check out the book.
If this does end up coming onto the small screen or the stream screen nowadays, when do you imagine that might be happening?
Oh, who knows? I've learned to never count my chickens before they hatch. And so in the meantime, I'm just concentrating on telling good stories. I'm working on a sequel right now that should hopefully be coming out in early 2025.
Very cool. And so is the sequel going to be kind of the same plot? It's just a kind of a continuation, or is it going to be a little bit different?
It's a little different. It's I still want to continue telling stories set in Texas. So this is a werewolf loose on the Riverwalk in San Antonio.
Nice.
And so it's another lycanthropic mystery that needs to be solved.
And so, just out of curiosity, so do you have a regular 8 to 5, or is this what you do full time?
No. So I work as a film programmer. So I work in the movie theater industry, and that's my full time job. And I'm grateful enough that my job gives me the chance to do this on the side.
Very cool. What other conventions do you go to? Is this the only one you mostly go to?
I go to this one every year just because I love Comicpalooza. But I've been to the Bedrock CityCon in Stafford. I've been to the Ghoulish Book Festival in San Antonio. And I did a big book tour last year. Went to over 26 different cities and showed different werewolf films at different movie theaters and sold copies of the book then.
Very cool. So I would be a bad journalist if I didn't ask you this. Favorite werewolf movie?
Oh, well, the classics, I'm always going to tell people The Howling or American Werewolf London, but those are also the easy answers because everybody loves those movies.
Right.
So instead, I'm going to give you a movie called Good Manners. It's a Brazilian werewolf film from, I think, 2017, and it's about two women who are trying to raise a werewolf baby. It's a great, great movie.
Very cool. Well, that is something for us to look into and maybe review in the future. Thank you so much for this interview. Really wonderful. Much success with this.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3. Hey, Vara the VCR again, live at Comicpalooza in beautiful Houston, Texas. A very hot Houston, Texas day. I see that you're dressed for the weather. So, question. So, first off, what are your characters that you are?
Hawk Girl and Hawkman.
Hawkman. Okay. And so, very elaborate. Love the wings and everything. What made y'all want to come out as Hawk Girl and Hawkman?
Well, I want to say that typically when I come in costume, everyone kind of, whatever's popular comes, but I wanted to stand out. So I want to make sure that I put a lot of detail. I went out of my way to make sure that we were basically the only ones. And that's so far, we've been the only ones. So.
Awesome. Very awesome. And how have you been enjoying being Hawkman all day?
For once, I'm not sweating from head to toe. So normally I come as her accessory, whatever she wants to come as. I come as someone that supports her, and usually it's a lot of like jackets or heavy things or lots of clothing, and I'm sweating. But today it's fresh.
Very cool. Very cool. So did y'all come last year?
Yeah, I've come every year for about 5 years.
Okay. So what were y'all last year?
Ooh, I'm typically something different every day. So I don't, I don't remember. I think I was.
Guts and Casca.
Oh yeah,
from
Guts and
Berserker.
Casca,
Oh, okay.
From Berserk anime. So,
All right. Awesome.
Nightwing and Starfire, and then Batman and Talia.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So have you been like pretty popular here today? Being
Yes.
And a lot of photos and everything.
Photos.
Awesome. And so you just kind of said you kind of did this because you wanted to do something unique. Are you already planning next year's costume?
Oh no, nothing. I'm so tired from just walking around that'll be a problem for tomorrow. I'll think about that tomorrow. I'll enjoy it.
So for the future, will you be reducing the heels then?
No, not even.
Not
nope,
even,
it has to
even
be the
though it
whole
hurts.
look. I'll go through the pain.
Very. Vara the VCR Show here on Sunday of Comicpalooza, another wonderful day, and we are here with
Douglas Brown.
Douglas Brown, who is the writer and illustrator of this really fascinating comic called Stormy. Could you tell us a little bit more about the background and the character Stormy?
Pop star who must fight for her soul and sanity against the forces of darkness when she becomes a target of a voodoo queen.
Nice. And what was it that inspired you to kind of come up with that tagline or that story background?
Well, I was always interested in doing a comic book for the longest time, but I didn't necessarily want to do superheroes. So I started looking around and thinking about what the next real life equivalent would be, and I decided to come up with celebrities and pop stars, basically, because they have their own gifts, their own abilities that we consider remarkable, and there's also the fact that money and fame is its own kind of power.
Right.
Plus they have a tendency to wear flashy outfits, so it kind of meshes well with the visual aspect of it.
And so what's the name of the Voodoo Queen? Or does she have a name? And what is her background? Why is she interested in Stormy?
Well, the Voodoo Queen is Crystal Presley, the Voodoo Queen of Pop, and she has an axe to grind with Stormy. They had something of a relationship, like friendly or whatever, but they had a falling out, and now this is kind of almost like a revenge tale, from Crystal's point of view.
Okay. And you were saying earlier that your magazine, I mean your comic, sorry, forgive me, is in some brick and mortar stores. What places or cities are those in?
Well, in Austin, it is Austin Books and Comics, Tribe Comics and Games. In San Antonio, I believe it is Heroes and Fantasies. In Dallas, oh God, my mind is blanking on that one. But I am trying to push into Houston, so hopefully soon, you'll be able to pick it up over there.
And if people were interested in getting your comic, how can they get a hold of your comic?
Well, most direct way would be stormycomic.com. That goes to the online store, and you can order, directly from me, and I'll sign each copy, bag and board them, ship them out. You can also go to indieplanet.com. You can find it there.
Excellent. And how long have you been doing this?
Well, Stormy, I've been working on since 2016. Yeah.
Nice. And when did you kind of discover you had this talent to do both writing and illustrating? Because that's kind of a hard one in the comic world. You don't always find them that have both those talents.
Yes. Well, let's see. My very, very first graphic novel was way back in 2009. It was a political satire called Once Upon a 2008. It was based on the election cycle over there. And I did that one because I wanted to kind of test myself to see if I could do like a long format comic. And that thing turned into like this 180-page monster, And it also helped me kind of hone my skills as far as setting up a page and kind of teaching myself the whole process of doing a book.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for this interview. And again, I'm Vara of the VCR Show. VCR Show, last day of Comicpalooza. And I'm here with...
Elizabeth Ryle, Rachel Ryle.
Oh, so you're both sisters then?
We're identical twins, yes.
Obviously, right? Like that, totally. So explain a little bit about your costume. This is absolutely fascinating. I'm sure you've been a hit throughout all Comicpalooza.
Yeah, we made these costumes quite a few years ago, but we haven't worn them at Comicpalooza in about 5 years at least. So they are 18th centuries, like Marie Antoinette, 1770s. It would have been what a gown looked like when you went to the ball. It's a sackback ball gown. And I really love Wonder Woman, but I don't like a classic Wonder Woman. I wanted to do something different. So I said, I'm going to make myself this Wonder Woman from this era. And I said, tell my sister, I said, choose any superhero that fits with Wonder Woman, and I'll make that one also in this style. And so that's what we did.
I'm Batgirl.
You're Batgirl? Oh,
yes,
I see it now. How
I got a little Batgirl hat and Batman earrings. Yeah.
Absolutely fun. Extremely creative. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this throughout all of Comicpalooza. So tell me a little bit about your background in making costumes. Do you both make costumes or?
So I make the costumes, like the fabric and stuff, but she makes a lot of our accessories. Yeah, so I made the wigs, and I put sewed all the flowers and all the little hat. I made the hat, and I made the shoes and the purses, and Basically anything that's not like just fabric, I make it. I've gotten really good at hats. So I technically call myself a milliner. That's my only expertise. Everything else is just kind of wing it.
And so, but you made the costume.
I did, yeah.
So first off, how long did it take you to make this
costume? So the gown itself took about 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then I also, let me get all this. So I also made all of our underpinnings. So this is called a pannier. It's a historically accurate underpinning. So I made this. And then we also have bloomers. I made those. And then we both have corsets that I made. And each of these corsets took 3 weeks to make.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can see her corset is coming out of the top. And there's like all these different channels and stuff. So that took 3 weeks to make, just the corset.
Wow, absolutely fascinating. Is this what you do for a full-time living, both of you, or?
I work at NASA. I'm an aerospace engineer.
Of course you're an engineer. Why not?
I'm a high school math teacher.
Awesome.
But this is what we do almost every weekend. We dress up, we go to different events. We do historical reenacting a lot, and as well as like Comic Cons and Renaissance festivals and all that stuff. So we're dressed up in some crazy outfit going somewhere almost every weekend.
That is so
this is our fun.
And I sympathize with it. I used to be a history teacher for high school, so yeah.
Awesome.
And then I left that, so you know.
I love history. History is amazing.
History is great. You know, I was certified in 9 different subjects. I had the social studies composite.
Oh, wow.
But this is extremely fascinating. Thank y'all so much. Do y'all have like a website or social medias that people can visit?
We have an Instagram. Okay. It's the Royal Twins Cosplay with an underscore under every word.
Okay. And is it just Instagram or Facebook?
Well,
or
we really just have an Instagram that like we are jointly together. We share the Instagram, and it's only just like costumes and stuff.
Okay.
And we'll friend anybody and everybody there. So,
Awesome,
like,
awesome.
Everything else is our personal, you know. So it doesn't have just costumes.
Awesome, awesome. Vara the VCR. Hello, Vara the VCR Show here live from Comicpalooza, and we are here with
Jeremiah Espinosa.
Jeremiah Espinosa, and you are the creator of what comic?
Hallowed North.
Hallowed North. Tell us a little bit about the comic.
Sure. Hallowed North is a psychological thriller that's kind of like Pixar's Inside Out meets A Nightmare on Elm Street. I really wanted to kind of find a way to tell a story to my family to explain what I was dealing with in my own depressive episodes, you know, my own struggles with mental illness. And that's what Hallowed North came from. This idea that within the mind there's a war going on, and we see this monstrous entity that kind of takes over, and you know, we figure out a way to defeat it, to get beyond it, right?
Tell us a little bit about the main character that you've developed.
The main character's name is Ben Ramos. It was important to me whenever I started writing this book. One of the first things that I did was created a character that was more of an atypical comic book hero. You know, he was a Caucasian male. And when I realized that there wasn't a whole lot of representation in, you know, the field, or when I realized that I was contributing to it rather, I went ahead and I said, well, you know what, let me write a story that puts, you know, somebody like my children, you know, into that forefront, you know. And Ben definitely, people always ask me, is it kind of an autobiographical story? And absolutely not. There are underlying issues. Ben and I both deal with depression, and that's it. Ben definitely has it a bit rougher than I do. But yeah.
So what kind of powers does Ben have in this comic series, or does he have any?
So Ben himself doesn't have powers. This isn't a traditional, you know, what you would think of like when you think of a comic book, it's not necessarily what you would imagine. But Hallowed North itself is the mindscape. It's this patchwork quilt of memory and fantasy that is informed by Ben's experiences, by his hopes and his dreams. And what we do see is that he does have a level of control over what's going on around him. You know, his own level of control. He has the ability to shape that reality, you know, that reality within the mind.
Okay. So it's kind of like him dealing with his, let's say, internal nightmares. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. His internal nightmares, his demons, you know.
Okay. Is that kind of like what's being depicted here in this artwork that you have?
Yes, absolutely. This banner is actually our first promotional image that I worked with. The artist's name is Jay Sheik. He's currently stationed in Idaho, but I think he's going back to California soon.
Okay.
But yeah, it's we kind of wanted to capture this intimidating, imposing force. Whenever you're dealing with mental illness, it feels like you're up against a wall, like you don't really have a way out. And so it was important to kind of capture that level of struggle.
And if people are interested in your comic, where can they go to find that and purchase it?
Comic can be found at janewrites.com, JAYNE Writes.com. All my socials are linked there, and yeah, you can by all means check out the book for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Bye. 1, 2, 3. Vara, the VCR show here at Comicpalooza, this wonderful, extremely hot Houston, Texas day. So tell me, who are you?
So I am dressed as Queen Amidala from Star Wars Episode 1.
Excellent. And I have to ask, you have probably the best costume I have seen all day, the most definitely elaborate costume. How long did it take you to put this together?
To sew this, I did it over the course of a few months, actually.
Wow.
A little bit every day, and eventually it was done.
So you sold everything,
Yes.
This whole thing is original. Wow.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to do your makeup?
Oh, not too long. I've got it down to a science, so usually it takes me about less than an hour now to get the makeup on and the whole outfit on now.
Very, very impressive. Now, is this your first time displaying this costume, or have you been out before with this?
Oh, I show it regularly all the time. Any excuse to wear it, I'm there.
Have you built any other costumes or gone out as any other characters?
I've done a few smaller ones. Poison Ivy was the first cosplay I actually ever did. I was Captain America once, and then I'll be wearing a different cosplay tomorrow, something that's anime related.
Okay, I'll be here tomorrow probably. So if I was going to try to spot you, who would you be tomorrow?
I don't know if a lot of people aren't familiar with the movie, but there's this movie Belle that's kind of loosely based on Beauty and the Beast. And so I'm like the main character from that movie.
Okay, so you would be Belle or the Beast?
I guess Belle. Right?
Very awesome. And so is this your favorite Star Wars character, out of curiosity?
I mean, she's the best, right?
What is it that makes her the best for you? What was it that kind of called you to this character?
I mean, number one, the outfits alone. And number two, she's just such a strong female character. You know, she really takes charge. And I really like that about her.
Very awesome. Thank you so much. Let me get, what is your real name?
Natasha.
Vara, the VCR show on the last day of Comicpalooza, and we are here with
Tim Frankovich.
And you are the author of this
A few books.
of just a few. I'm just noticing just a small little collection here.
It just kind of happened.
Yeah, just one day, produced a bunch of books. Tell us a little bit about the storyline behind your collection.
Okay, I've got 3 different series. This is the Heart of Fire fantasy series down here. It's 4 books. It's mostly about a couple of young people trying to end the system of curses that controls the law of their land. Basically, there's no law enforcement. Everything is controlled by magic. You break a law, you're instantly cursed. You know, so there's no appeal, no other justice system. So they're trying to get rid of that because the Lord's kind of twisted it so they don't suffer from it either. So this one here, the Dragon Tech Lore series, is a young adult science fantasy. So it has mixtures of tech and magic. Imagine something like Hunger Games, dystopia type thing, but where the evil overlords are giant cybernetically enhanced dragons.
Interesting. And is this also part of that, or is this?
No, this is something separate. The Certainty of Blood was sold out today.
Very nice.
Very great.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been my best con. And it's epic fantasy with a gladiator type storyline. The main character is sold into arena slavery when he's 13 years old because he demonstrates this strange power over blood. And the entire religion, magic system, economy is based on blood, so people don't like that. So he's trying to fight his way to freedom through that.
Very cool. So how long have you been writing?
This way, about 6 years.
About 6 years?
Yeah. It started when I was in 3rd grade, but that was when I was drawing comic strips of Godzilla fighting stick figure superheroes. So I've gotten a little better.
Just a little better, only enough to get a few interesting novels here. Is there a particular story one that you're maybe mostly proud of, or do you love them all the same?
the newest ones, The Certainty of Blood and Wolf Chosen, because part of it is I like to think I'm getting better, and they're the newest ones, and so I think they're the best. And I spent a whole lot of time researching for them. I wanted a world, for example, where there was a geosynchronous moon that's always in the same position. And so I went and talked to some NASA scientists that I know and said, hey, what would that do, you know, besides just tides?
Right.
You know, and they gave me so much feedback. It changed everything I wanted to do about the story and just sent me in all kinds of new directions. So it was a lot of fun. Spent a lot of time on that, and I really love what came out of it.
Very cool. So with that being said, if someone was interested in getting a hold of one of your book series, how would they go about finding that?
I'm on Amazon. You can track me down there with my name, Tim Frankovich, or my website's timfrankovich.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, used to be Twitter, whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, very cool. And is there anything else you would like the audience to know about your book series or about you or anything like that?
Wow. That's a
loaded
question. Right now, I'm absolutely exhausted because it's just been an incredible convention. I got to be on a panel with Jim Butcher and sold out a lot of books. So it's been great.
Absolutely wonderful, and much, much more success to you. And thank you so much for this interview. You have been listening to VCR, creative content by Richard Christopher Vara and Roxy Perez. Logo by Richard Christopher Vara with assistance from Annie Ramirez. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach us at thevcrshow@gmail.com or our social medias at Instagram and Twitter at The VCR Show. And you can also check out our content at thevcrshow.com. The show's song is Addict by Nefex, instrumental, and you can find them on YouTube Music Library.